Yo, what's poppin'? We're back with another episode of the No Level Cap podcast. I'd like to introduce everybody to my crew. We down one this week, but it's all good. We still gonna bring the energy. We got the Black Daredevil and the best actor in Austin, Terrence Flowers. What's up, Terrence?
Hey, what's going on? I just got back from Mississippi not too long ago, visited the folks, made sure that everyone was okay, and I can happily say I just got a PS5. Whoop, whoop, and I know that's what we're going to get into today. So, yeah, I'm ready. Let's go.
That is indeed well timed. And also, we've got the living cartoon and the man with the golden voice, Rakeem Beck. What's good, Rakeem?
Hey, man, the blacker the better, the sweeter the juice. I'm feeling juicy. Let's get ready.
Bro.
I don't know what that had to do with what we was talking about, but I mean, I'm good with it. And, you know, I am Sage Ashford, the man who won't shut up. Okay, so this week, we're going to talk about next gen, or like realistically current gen, because we're like 2 years into current gen now with the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series, and it kind of doesn't feel like it. It feels more like we spent the last year and a half plus just kind of having an extended 8th generation. Like the systems were almost impossible to get, and then when you could get them, you had to pay way above MSRP for them. But now that things are finally changing, I thought it was a good idea to finally get into this next gen lifestyle, at least to a point. So the first thing I want to ask is, and I know the answer, but I mean, like, obviously the crowd doesn't necessarily, our people don't necessarily know. So let's find out. Do you own a next gen console, and how do you feel about it? So Terrence, how do you own a next gen console? Which one, and how do you feel about it?
I literally got it like a week ago, like a week ago. No, but just short story on my end. I just so happened to randomly look up the website that you have, like the PlayStation 5 tracker, and it was like a random Wednesday or something like that. And I just saw that Sony had made a drop, and I was like, well, they probably sold out by now. I went online. The base PS5 just by itself, no like bundle or anything, was sold out. I was like, that figures. But then I saw the Horizon 2 bundle was still in stock. I was like, there's no way. I added it to my cart, and I was like, it's still here. Put in my address information, everything. I was like, wow, this is actually still happening. Put in my credit card information. I was like, oh, I'm finally going to get a PS5. And, well, I secured it. And I since I went to Mississippi, I didn't get a chance to, like, unbox it or anything until this past week. Well, this weekend, since we're recording this on Sunday. But, yeah, this weekend, I put everything together. And, yeah, I like it, but I haven't gotten a chance to play anything on it. So I don't have, like, any real thoughts on it. I mean, everything looks nice, so yeah, I'm looking forward. I guess I'll give you like a progress report or like an update in the future, but for just right now, I mean, I look at my shelf, it looks really nice. I like how it looks on the TV, so I mean, yeah.
Do you like the lack of jet engine sounds?
Yeah, you know what, the fact that it's quiet, I don't know, I have to get used to that. Usually when you fire up the console, you hear
yeah, you hear all of that.
Although I guess to be fair, for me, my PS4, it would only really like get that bad when like I'm playing a pretty extensive game. Usually like I'm running just like regular like media apps and stuff like that, so it doesn't get too bad. But I remember the last game I played that caused it to really go haywire was Last of Us 2. So yeah.
Ooh.
But yeah, it feels good to have a next gen system, even though I haven't gotten a chance to fully take advantage of it yet. So yeah,
man, isn't it wild how online shopping is? Like that shit's nothing like real life. Like if you're holding the item and you can afford to buy the item, you're going to walk out of the store with the item. But I mean, like if you can't get all your information in and have the credit card and do it like as quick as possible, if that item is something that people really want, it's entirely possible you get to the part where you like purchase and they like, psych, bitch, you thought we out of it now. Like,
it's funny because the bundle actually stayed live for another couple of hours, which shocked me. It's just like, I guess people really don't mess with Horizon 2 like that.
That can actually be part of the discussion later.
Yeah.
But I will say, like, yeah, I mean, like, I guess it's possible that nature is kind of like restoring itself, like it's kind of getting back to, the norm. Rakeem, do you own a next gen console? Which one do you own, and how do you feel about it so far?
Yes. So I own a next gen console. The next gen console is PlayStation 5. and I feel good about it. But before we get to that, let me tell the full story. So I spent the entire pandemic for the past 2 years when PlayStation 5 came out, basically living in a perpetual SpongeBob meme of I don't need it. Every time I had a chance to look it up, I was like, I don't need it. I would be like, I can save that money. I don't need it here and there. But when you save money up for 2 years, after a while, the excuses gone away. Like, you can absolutely afford this. Crap. No more excuses. So, as many of you know, GameStop was doing a thing where they were allowing you to come in during specific Saturdays or weekends where they had some PlayStation 5s in stock. I knew absolutely I wanted one. So I ran into the issue where I would try to purchase the PS5 at a GameStop. However, I work some weekends, so I have to wait till after I get off work. And I did this twice. The first time I couldn't go that Saturday, so I tried to go in Sunday. By Sunday, it was all gone, of course. The second time, I came on a Saturday. I came a little bit in the afternoons, pretty early afternoons. Maybe I had a chance. I walked into the store, the GameStop. I took 3 steps forward, and I was like, "Do you guys have any PS5s left?" They had a number on the outside about how many they had left, and it did say like one or two. And when I walked in, the purchasing guy was like, "Sorry, man, we're selling our last PS5 right now." You could have saw my sad face. It was like a puppy dog. But yeah, like I was disheartened. The guy who bought the PS5 was looking at me the whole time, just checking out, like, "Man, I'm so sorry, man." Grabbing his bag, looking at me. I really feel bad, man. Clutching his
Yeah,
PS5,
he felt bad
looking
for you.
both.
He felt bad for you,
I feel
not for
bad.
him. He
Now
was good.
he was walking out backwards and stuff, man. You know, just backing up little by little. Hey, man, I feel so bad for him. I'll holler at you though. I mean, I'm about to take this sucker. I wasn't going to because I'm not that hard up. And after that, I was like, man, this is disheartening. But you know what? Maybe I can look it up online. Maybe I can find one online. So I look online, and of course, everything's freaking marked up so high in different markets. You could look online for certain things, but even Walmart was trying to sell some up priced. So you're getting stuff like 800, 900, $1,000.
Yeah, that's
So I
the
was like, maybe I'll
second
just
hand.
wait
Yeah.
again. So I was very blessed because, you know, the Lord works in mysterious ways. The very next day, I look at my email and PlayStation says, it's time. We got you. On this date at this time, be ready. And we get the PS5. Just so happens that day, I was off work. So I had the whole day. The whole day. I just was not missing this time. I waited till that website came in. I bought the Horizon Forbidden West bundle because that's the bundle that's pretty much the only bundle they sell. It feels like. Bought the Horizon Forbidden West bundle and I got in there. And I gotta say, so far, I've been enjoying it. I think the one thing I like about it so far is that the transition between my PS4 and my PS5. Thank God they have reverse compatibility for the PS5. It makes this process so much easier because my library on my PS4 is humongous, and for the most part, I can pretty much play everything. So I was able to transition like Elden Ring straight over, or like Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, and like different games I was playing already, and it felt like I never left. Except I had better graphics, better frame rate on some of those games. They played a little smoother. So for me, it's been a positive experience. Now, will it continue to be that way? You know, I'm looking at the games like I like the games they have, but it is a little barren right now. We're in that phase, in that phase between when console generation. We got basically because all the games got pushed back for a year, as you know. We're basically in that phase like the PS4 era where we just didn't have games for a little while.
All right, you kind of stepping on. I really just wanted you to like chip in on like how do you feel about the apps and shit like that. Like how does that working on you? Like how does
Oh
do
yeah,
you feel like the apps are equivalent to what you had on the PS4 and like do they function as well or better?
yeah, they do. I mean, the Crunchyroll app updated itself, and oh my god, it's so much better in every way. Yeah, I have no really issues with the apps. Everything's running, they're kind of running better, to be
Yeah,
honest.
they're
A lot of the
snappier.
app,
Like the
yeah,
transition from going from like app to app is a whole lot
yeah.
smoother.
And of course, they have the system where you can like go in the game and in the media really quickly and easily, and you can go right back into where you were in the game. I like that a lot. So positive experience so far on PS5.
That's what I want to hear. It's crazy. I was there with you, not on the day that you went to GameStop, but like the day that we walked into GameStop. I think just cause, I mean, I think we like went to get some food or whatever, and we were like in this strip mall, and we had got the food, and it was like, yeah, GameStop is like right down the road. I bet they don't have none, but let's go see if they got some PlayStation 5s. And so we walked up in there, and the dude was like, yeah, we got PlayStation 5s coming, but you're going to have to subscribe and get your power up rewards. And that man got the power up rewards out of you, and you didn't get a PS5 out of them. That's trash, man.
That is trash.
And, I on the flip side, like as far as me, I do not have a next gen console, and that is okay because the fact that it's July, and both of y'all have had y'all new consoles for what about them? You've had yours for like a week, Terrence, and you've had yours, Keem, for like what, a month, maybe a month and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like the fact that it's this far into this gen and y'all still talking about all these weird stories. The story, like, it's not like y'all had to do no movie type shit, but it's still more work than what it should be, which is, I walked in a store, I bought one, and I walked out. That's how it should be. It shouldn't be no story. It shouldn't be no, I almost had it, but then I didn't get it. Like, it's a year plus. Like, sure, a month in, 2 months in, I can see it, but like now, that's crazy. What's up, Terrence?
I was just gonna say that sneakerheads will liken it to like being on the Nike sneakers app, where nowadays people are always trying to hit on certain shoes, and the message that a lot of people get is you missed it, or whatever the Nike sneakers message is for letting you know that you took an L. But yeah, that's how it feels nowadays with a lot of this stuff. Is that it's kind of funny how hype beast culture is kind of like infiltrated even consoles in terms of it's hard to get, and when you do get it, it's kind of like a flex, and then you have people selling it on the secondhand market at like a higher price, that sort of thing. So it's just really interesting to see how like the fusion, not the fusion, but just how things are kind of like crossing over in that regard.
You hit on something there. Like when you said it's like the hype beast culture, it is a little bit like that because what happens? What happens is if it were not rare, this would never have happened. But the second it was rare, you had people trying to get a PS5 that probably didn't really play video games like that. And I'm not going to say they don't play video games at all, but I'm saying that they not no super hardcore, I need to get the new system right now type person. But like the second it became a status symbol, they was like, oh, I got to have one. Because I got to be able to flex and tell everybody, yeah, I got the new PS5. And they ain't playing nothing, but they finna just go lose at the same NBA basketball game, but they finna lose at 4K now. Like, all right, bro, you ain't need no PS5 for this. But they had to go get one because they had to show it off. And so, like, you're right. Like, that is what happens. Like, that hype beast type culture, that need to show off, that social media need to, like, yeah, I got it. I spin it because I got it. That type shit kind of fucked the game up for everybody else. And the other thing I thought about while y'all were talking, and I think Terrence mentioned the whole secondary market thing, I really hate that Walmart has embraced that. Because it used to be, if you were hard up, like you just go to Walmart and they didn't have a secondary market, really, no secondary market sellers. And so you just go there and you buy it, and it would be at the price, it'd be at MSRP, as opposed to them allowing a secondary retailer in, and the retailer is now selling it to you at $800,000, $900,000, which
they had to get on that They had to get on that the Amazon train. That's really that's what it is. Yeah,
that's exactly what happened. And I just couldn't. I'm like, man, I'm not paying a dime over what it costs. Like what the system actually costs, I'm not giving y'all that. And I'm not actually going out of my way, like, be online at this time. I work from home, but I still like fuck that. Just as a matter of principle, fuck off. Like, I got to wait for the privilege of giving y'all $500 plus tax. Nah, kiss my ass. I ain't doing that. So I'll pick up one when they easily available. I'll be happy to get one then. But right now I'm like, man, I'm straight. I got a nice PC. It's a little old. It ain't no 3080. I wish I had that, but I got the little old video card, but it still works. It still runs my games at 60 frames or upward, like a consistent 60. So I'm fine. I'll be all right. I guess the next question I'll ask in Terrence's case, since he hasn't spent a lot of time gaming, I'll ask like, how much do you intend? Like the next question I'll ask Rakeem, like, how much have you been using the backwards compatibility, like as opposed to like playing like new games? Because I know that was a thing I feel like it was either like one of the companies basically kind of tried to like play off backwards compatibility as like a thing that's not that important. And I'm like, I don't know about that. I feel like some gamers now I think they were talking about legacy games, Xbox, like going back past last gen, but like the year before 7th gen, 6th gen, 5th gen, like that type shit. But still, I think backwards compatibility is like a big deal. So, Rakeem, how much have you been using the backwards compatibility function?
90%. Because I just got my PS5, so like all my games are PS4 games, and as maybe the audience doesn't know, but many people know, I'm a sampler, so I have a lot of games in my backlog that I usually go back to sometimes months, months ago I haven't played yet and play them. So I'm still right now I'm playing the Mass Effect collection from last year. I still have the East 9 that came out on PS4 for in America. Trails of Cold Steel 3, several fighting games. So my backlog is so much larger than my new game log because the only new games I got really is like Deathloop, like
Oh, you
that's
got Deathloop?
console exclusive. I do. I got
Okay.
Deathloop. I got Deathloop. I wanted to see how it was. It's not that expensive. So I got Deathloop, and that's about it. I played it marginally, but I'm still playing a backlog for the most part because there's a lot of games I want to get out the way. And I mean, I felt like that was going to be my main thing doing it first anyway because I had so much. The average person probably isn't going to have as many games as I have in the backlog. I could play my backlog. Oh my god, I could play my backlog for a couple years, and I'd be perfectly fine to get through them if I wanted to. But yeah, so I use a lot.
Okay, so obviously this one's a little like I'm a little awkward on this one because I can't answer the question technically. But I mean, like currently I am playing like largely games that were on PS4, and so like there's another question I'm gonna ask at the end that kind of ties into this. So I'm gonna skip me and we're gonna go back to Terrence. Terrence, uh, are you planning on doing a lot of backwards compatibility? Like, are you planning on playing a bunch of PS4 games right now, or are there like some PS5 games that you're targeting? And like when you get into it, you'll just be playing PS5 games.
So to Rakeem's point, yeah, I'm definitely gonna be playing a lot of past gen stuff. For one, you get now that I have a PS5, you get the enhancements. Like you get the enhancements on certain games, and I'm looking forward to playing those games in like 60 FPS. Maybe I guess they'll be at I don't I think the PS5 doesn't play run games at 1440 like 2K essentially. I think it's either 1080p or 4K. So
Yeah.
I don't think you'll get like 4K enhancements, but it'll look as good as it can. I'll put it that way. But
Yeah.
like I played Last of Us 2, but I never like actually finished it, so I can go back and play that now. I believe it's 60 FPS. God of War can play that at 60 FPS. Final Fantasy 7 Remake can play that at 60. So all these games are just going to be a better experience. And so yeah, there's certain games where I am looking forward to going and either playing them for the first time or revisiting them just to see like the differences. So I will be diving into my PS4 backlog and definitely playing some of those games. And there are some PS5 games that I plan to purchase as well. I know that Forspoken got delayed till next year, so I can scratch that off the list. But God of War 2, I definitely have my eyes set on that. I want to play Returnal. So there's definitely some PS5 stuff that I want to get my hands on, but there's still plenty of PS4 games that I haven't covered yet, and I definitely want to play them with the enhancements. So maybe the fact that I procrastinated for so long actually ended up paying off because now I get to play the games in their best fashion. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Get a chance to play those games in 60 FPS.
Yes,
Uh,
60 FPS.
and so that kind of ties into what I was gonna ask next, which is relative to the time where we were last gen. So right now it's 2022. We're a year and a half into this gen, almost 2 years. That would be like what 2015, mid 2015 for PS4, Xbox One era. How do y'all feel the games stack up, like relative to 2014, 2015 for Xbox One and PS4? So like, let me give y'all some references of what would have been out by then. Middle Earth, Shadow of Mordor, Dragon Age Inquisition, The Witcher 3, Bloodborne, all of these games would have been out by mid 2015. I think Wolfenstein 1 was out. I don't know if Wolfenstein 2 was out. Um, in fact, I
Infamous
know
Second
Wolfenstein.
Son.
Yeah, Infamous Second Son. That was a game that they had. Uh, what else am I missing?
That was close to a launch title, wasn't it?
Right.
Infamous Second
Mhm.
Son was indeed launch-ish window, because I remember that
Yeah.
was the first title I got when I got my PS4. Like I bought a PS4
Hmm.
and then I bought Infamous Second Son like 2 months later when it
The
came out.
launch titles were like Killzone, Shadowfall, and Neck.
Yeah.
So we can actually let's start there.
Yeah.
I'm of the opinion that the PS5 and the Xbox Series launch titles blow the PS4 and Xbox One launch titles out of the fucking water. Like stuff like Spider-Man, Miles Morales, and Demon Souls and all that type shit. That's way better, way better than what you had back then.
Mm.
I don't know how the COD compares. Like I know that's like a thing for a lot of people, the big COD. I don't know how what's the sports games. I mean, that's just kind of a wash. Like every year new sports games come out, and I'm not even shitting on sports games. I'm just saying like even when sports game fans play them, they like this shit is it's like last year. Like they didn't make no meaningful changes. That tends to be one of their bigger complaints. Like, man, they ain't really make no meaningful changes. It's the same shit that it was last year. Every now and again, you'll get a new one that's like a big jump, like a big graphical leap. But for the most part, they kind of identical damn near. And so like that one's kind of a wash. But like I think Black Flag is more memorable than Assassin's Creed Odyssey. People
Yeah.
still talk about Black Flag. Odyssey definitely made more money. Odyssey sold better, but like if you talk about the most memorable Assassin's Creeds, Black Flag is going to be up top, and Odyssey is not even. It would be lucky to rank in the top 5, maybe in top 10. It's just not. It's not going to have the same memory. Like it's not going to stick with people like Odyssey does, or like Black Flag, or like Assassin's Creed 2, or something like that. So I think those a little bit different. Actually, COD might be better because what was the one for 2013? COD Ghosts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it was COD Ghost. Yeah.
Yeah, so like COD Ghosts versus what? Call of Duty Vanguard, or is it Black Ops Cold War
You're talking about that
Was
came
it?
out for the
for
PS4.
2020? For
Oh,
2020.
2020. COD 2020. Do this the old fashioned. It was black. Yeah, it was Black Ops Cold War.
Yeah, people
That was
fuck with
much
that
better.
title. People fuck with that title, and then like Warzone came out not too long after that, and so like actually no, Warzone would have come out before that, and then like Black Ops Cold War. So yeah, like people fuck with that way more than they fuck with Ghosts. People fucking hated Ghosts. I remember that shit. Like I'm not a
Including me.
COD fan.
Hated it.
Exactly.
Hated it.
I'm not a COD fan, but like I grew up. Oh, well, not grew up, but like I was in college with like hella friends that were all COD fans, and they fucking hated Ghosts. They played Ghosts, and they was like, this shit ass. So like the COD was better this gen. I feel like the exclusives were better this gen because like you got, and it just like the fact there was backwards. I feel like we in a better spot now than we were 7 years ago when they launched. When like by 2015, like okay, they had Bloodborne. We got Elden Ring. Now, I don't think there's an equivalent to The Witcher,
No.
but I still think there are tons of really good video games that have come. Because, like, I remember when I got my PS4 and that shit was barren. Like, that, I feel like the first month and a half, I didn't have shit to play. Then I got Infamous Second Son and I played the fuck out of that. I played the dog shit out that game. And then, like, after that, I went back to having nothing to play until, like, what was it? Watch Dogs came out, and I didn't like Watch Dogs at first. I had to get used to it, and then I think I played Destiny, which I wound up hating. I played Shadow of Mordor, which I was like, this. It was good. It was good for the time. Let me put it that way. It's good for the time.
I like
If I
Shadow
went back
Mordor.
to play it now, say what, King?
Yeah, I like Shadow Mordor too.
Yeah. If I had to go back and play it now, like just like when Shadow of War came out, I was like, I'm kind of over it. So like I don't think I would be as into it now, like that same experience. I don't think there's anything I don't think there's much you could do to make enhance that experience. And I guess like the only other games I remember playing of that era were like Dragon Age Inquisition, and then of course The Witcher when that came out. And those are all amazing games, but I just feel like that era might have had higher peaks, But consistency wise, I think this era has been better. You got Deathloop, which Keem just mentioned. You've got Returnal. You've got Ratchet and Clank. You've got Spider-Man Miles Morales. You've got Demon Souls. You've got Elden Ring. You've got Horizon Forbidden West. Like consistently wise, like it may not have had the same peaks, but consistency wise, it's not even close. And I think we're in a better position now relative to like mid 2015 for the PS4, PS5. Rakeem, how do you feel about that?
I see. I like your argument. I definitely see where you're coming from because I feel like I want to play everything. I think it's not really a problem. The benefit I think this generation has over the last generation is that Sony had established its single player identity strongly in the PS3 era, and the PS4 era really, really solidified it. Like it is the PS4 single player experience. So coming into the PS5, I think Sony's mindset was we have to have strong single player titles at the launch of this console to prepare. This is what our audience expects from us now. We have to deliver on that, and that's why we got like Miles Morales and Demon Souls and games like that early on. I think it did a good job of like having stuff ready to go out the gate. Of course, I don't have the benefit of the doubt of having it at launch. That experience is a little different for me. Also, I think it also has the benefit of it has a strong launch and it's backwards compatible, which PS4 was not. Like I can play the PS5 games, and in between that, I can finish up the PS4 games I didn't finish. That experience together, way better. I'm already having a blast, like playing old games and then trying out new games. Like I tried Arcade Again last week, fun little, roguelike shooter. I thought I had fun. I had fun with that, and then go back and play Mass Effect Collection as well. So to your point, Sage, I think it's doing a better job of like establishing those strong IPs and allowing me to play my old games. I do feel like the only thing that might have hurt it a little bit is that all of those games that got pushed back because it could have been even stronger than what it was. Like so many games got pushed back. We're getting God of War this year, which I'm so happy about that because I think a lot of us thought, man, that could get pushed back like the other games, even though they felt pretty strong about it.
They were so confident. Like they were like hella confident. They were like, nah, this is coming out this year. And it makes me feel like they already had the release date in mind. Now, I don't know what the problem was with Starfield because they also claimed that they were confident, 11/11, 2022. Like they felt like they were confident. But I think that like you heard rumors about like the flying feeling like shit, like the spaceship flying. Like supposedly it feels like shit. It doesn't feel fun. So like maybe that they trying to push it back a little bit to try to like polish that a little bit. Maybe they trying to polish out the stereotypical Bethesda jank.
That's kind of along the lines of what I was thinking. Is that Bethesda games usually have a lot of problems at launch, so they're probably wanting to polish that up a little bit because they gotta redeem themselves from Fallout 76, So,
and that makes me wonder: did they delay it because they don't want the backlash like they got with 76, or was Microsoft like, y'all was gonna launch it like this? No, the fuck you not. Put it back, push it back, and keep working on it and polish out them bugs. Like, I wonder if that had played a part in it. If Microsoft was just like, nah, we're not gonna have this. You're not gonna just launch this game in a bad state. We got enough problems with Halo not launching the way we needed it to launch. Like, we're not gonna compile on that. Like, fuck that. But yeah, Terrence, how do you feel? Like, how do you feel about this generation relative to where we were last generation, like mid 2015?
So I was turning my head a lot over here just because I'm looking at another screen, and I was looking at the games that came out during like the earlier days of the PS4 and looking at where we are now with the PS5 and the Series X generation. You do raise some good points, Sage. Like me looking at it now, because at first I was kind of like, I don't know. But then I'm looking at it and it's like, I can see what you're talking about. Because even just from the 2014 games, it was fine. I feel like the transition from PS3 to PS4 with just that generation, I don't want to keep it to like a Sony thing, but you know what I mean? It's just easier to just say that. The transition was more so just making sure that the games from the PS3 360 generation, just making them next gen for the next generation. Whereas for this gen, that doesn't seem to be quite the case. Like, obviously, they're making next gen versions of games from prior generation, but it's more of a cross-gen thing now instead of just them making it making a separate version of that game for, you know, the next gen system. It's, I guess what I'm getting at is like you have the I'm trying to think of an example. Okay, well, like I'll just go with the sports example. Like you have the PS3 version of 2K at that time, and then you would also have the PS4 version of 2K at that time, which is more like sweat or whatever. So that's kind of where we are with this generation, except I can take the disc from the prior gen, PS4, Xbox One generation, pop it into the new system, and it works seamlessly. The upgrades are already there. I couldn't do that last generation. Last generation from PS3 to PS4, you had to buy a whole new game, so you had to take the L on that one. So that's one thing that's really good about this generation is that they're making it more seamless to transfer from the prior generation to the current generation. And even I know, Rakeem, you mentioned earlier about your setup. For me, yeah, it was relatively easy. You know, just set up the PS5, you know, let it run its updates and everything. And then all I had to do was just because I'm a PlayStation Plus member, is just re-download all my save states and my trophies and all that. Right. And if I want the game again, my library is there. I can just re-download the game on the PlayStation 5 or just go into my room, get a disc, and pop it in. Were you going to say something?
To answer your point, even easier than that, I have an external hard drive. It's compatible with PS5. I literally just put my external hard drive on PS4, plugged into PS5, the games were there.
Yeah, you can do that as well. Yeah, I don't have an external just because for my PS4 I upgraded to like a 2 terabyte drive, and so it's way more than the PlayStation 5. So if I tried to transfer everything, it wouldn't work because I would have ran out of storage. So what I'm gonna do is just as I play games and I don't need them, I'm just going to delete them to make room for newer games because we know these new games are going to be huge. So you're not going to have all the hard drive space for them. But just in terms of how I feel about this generation in comparison to where we were with the PS4 around its time, yeah, I do think that things are better. It's like for the PS4 Xbox One generation, I think like the first real next gen game, or at least that the game that people were claiming to really feel like next gen at that time was Shadows of Mordor. Like just because of the way that there were mechanics in that game that you couldn't pull off with the PS3 360 generation.
The Nemesis system.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, the Nemesis. I never played Shadows of Mordor, but I do remember like seeing reviews of it being like at that time considered like the first real next gen game.
You had that, and then so for Shadows of Mordor, like if you haven't played it, like they had the Nemesis system, which allowed the AI enemies to remember you. So like if you killed them, like if they killed you, they would remember like when you came back, and they would become like your nemesis. Mm-hmm. And like, or if you attacked one of them and you couldn't kill them, and they like ran off, they would come back changed, kind of leveled up, and they'd be like, "No, I remember you. You did all of this to me, and I'm gonna come fuck you up." It was a really cool idea. It was a really cool system. By the way, if you didn't know, the reason why that shit never like popped off and popped into other games is because they got fucking greedy as shit and was like, "Oh, we gonna copyright this system," and they didn't do anything with. Of course, like it takes forever to fucking make a video game. So like 6 years later, like they put out the Nemesis system in Shadow of Mordor, and then they used it again in Shadow of War, the sequel to the game, and then they haven't used it since. And it's supposed to show up in the new Wonder Woman game, but it's like when it first appeared, it was this genius idea, and it would have been cool to see it pop up in other games across that generation. At this stage, it's like, yeah, that was an idea. I mean, it was cool, I guess, because it's been 7 years and nobody gives a shit anymore. But I mean, like at the time, it was like a groundbreaking thing. And the other thing it could do was that you couldn't do in the PS3 version was you could kind of teleport around to kill people. Like it would just allow you, like if you had like a certain number of spirit points or whatever, and you had your assassinations right, you could do like certain assassinations and jump from like one part of the field to like several kilometers off and just like kill a motherfucker. And I just remember seeing somebody play the PS3 version, and it was like, yeah, we ain't got that shit. I'm like, I'm so sorry. But go ahead, Terrence, my bad.
Yeah, no, you're good. Thanks for the explanation, because I definitely wouldn't have been able to explain that myself. But I do think the perception of this gen, because not as many people have access to the consoles, is that it's worse than prior gens. But yeah, I'd have to agree. Like when you really look at it, I do think that we're at a better point now than what we were with the previous generation, or even just past generations in general, in terms of that seamless transition from one gen to the other. I think that this generation has been the smoothest thus far. Now, if only the consoles could be readily available, then, that would make it even better. But, that's a whole nother story. But I do think that just what I'm seeing so far, I think that we're getting to a good place. And I think next year's a real test. Like, that's going to show us how good next gen, like, I feel like next year is going to be the year that shows us what next gen is capable of. And I guess maybe we'll stop calling it next gen at that point. It'll just be current gen, because that's what it is. So, yeah.
I mean, I call it current gen, but I think it's valid to still call it next gen, just because the consoles aren't readily available. Like, you can't just walk into GameStop, you can't just walk into Walmart and just walk out with a PlayStation 5. You might be able to walk out with an Xbox Series S, but a Series X, you probably still out of luck.
There's hella Series S's available. Like, every time I walk into like Target or Walmart, I see Series S's everywhere. So they're readily available.
Don't nobody want that little ass boombox. Get out of here. People keep hyping that system up, and I'm like, no, I know what's gonna happen. Like,
it's like buying a Switch Lite. You're kind of just cheapening yourself,
With the Switch Lite though, like, it does serve a function. Like, if you really don't care about hooking it up and playing it on like a big TV, fine, because like the Switch Lite, I'm under the understanding that the Switch Lite runs identical to the Switch in handheld mode. So if you're only ever gonna play it as a handheld, I kind of get it.
Yeah,
I don't agree with it, but like, I get it, because like, it's gonna run like ass for you regardless, because like, certain games are gonna run like ass for you no matter what, because you run it in handheld mode, and you're only ever gonna run it in handheld mode. But like with the Xbox Series S, I'm like, bro, 3 years from now, as the games get more complex, as the games become more graphically demanding, you are going to run into issues. Like, don't tell me you're not. That's how it always works. You're going to run smack into some issues, and the only answer is going to be, hey, man, you can buy Xbox Series S Series X, or something that I'm going to bring up in a second. One thing I do want to say before we move on to the next question is, all right, look, man, the one thing people forgot about the PS4 is that when that motherfucker launched, it had nothing on it. Like, the PS3 had, and I'm not talking about games, I'm talking about apps. When the PS3 launched, like, by the end of the PS3 era, you had Netflix and Crunchyroll and YouTube and all this other shit. And then the PS4 kind of launched without most of those. I mean, I think it still had YouTube, but I think by and large, like, it didn't have a Crunchyroll, it didn't have Netflix. Like, they had to add that shit over time. And one thing I know it didn't have, if you had like a media server like Plex or something like that, like, you was just out of luck. Like, if you downloaded files and you had a bunch of downloaded files, the PS3 could play them. Like, they could play, AVIs and MP4s and shit like that, and it could play music. And the PS4 could not do that. The PS3 had built that up over the years, and the PS4 just kind of launched, and it was like, yeah, we play video games, bro. You remember when y'all was hyping us up, y'all told us, we was great for focusing on video games. Well, now, damn it, that's all we do. We just focus on video games, and you shit out of luck if you want us to do anything else. And I remember back in the day, I was on the forums and different forums, and people was all hyping up like, oh yeah, Spotify's coming to the PS4. Like, my nigga, this shit should have been on there. Like, what you talking about? Like, don't hype up some shit that the PS3 could already do. Like, I don't want to hear that. And fortunately, to my knowledge, the PS5 did not have those problems. Like, when you got it, it was able to do everything you needed it to do. Because I remember having a PS4 and just being like, there are no games that I want to play on it. And it cannot play like anime. Like, anytime I was still downloading hella anime. Just a second.
Yeah.
I was still downloading hella anime and all this other shit. And I just had to put it on my PS3. And basically, my PS4 was a paperweight for at least a month and a half. All right, what's up, Terrence?
I was just going to say, one, I guess in the PS4 and like the Xbox One's defense at that time, it's like, I think we hadn't quite gotten to the point yet where like apps on the console were taken fully seriously. It's like we were there, we were like maybe like 60% of the way there, because we didn't have like smart TVs at that point, and like the whole idea of like having apps on your TV or you're like having a bunch of apps on your phone at that time wasn't quite there just yet. So I can see why it didn't launch that way. But at the same time, yeah, I completely see where you're coming from, and that's why the PS5 and the Series X, they had to launch with all those apps, because that's the way a lot of people watch their entertainment now. It's through the console, so they need those apps. We're an app-driven world at this point. It's on your phone, it's on your TV, it's on your console. Yeah, so you can't avoid it.
Exactly. Okay, so I guess the next question: do y'all think there will be pro models this time? And that's the thing that I was gonna say. Like, as far as like Xbox Series S, like eventually the answer is gonna be like, hey man, buy a Series X, or potentially if there's a pro model out by then, you can buy a pro model. And so like, do y'all think that there will be a pro model this gen, like an Xbox? What was it? The Xbox One X?
Yeah.
I don't know how they would. I don't know
like
what the naming.
the One S, I think.
No. The One S was like the cheap version, and then the One S was like the slim.
Okay.
And the One X was like the more expensive cog diesel Xbox One. Like, that's what that was.
Okay, let me just say this real quick. Anyone who thinks that like I'm a Sony fanboy, or any of us on here is a Sony fanboy, when we keep saying like the PS4, PS3 generation, it's like, look, Sony made it easy to just say the names and you don't have to think about it. Every single time I have to think about like what Xbox was in a generation, I have to think of the actual name. So it's just easier to say PS4, PS5 generation. So no, this isn't any fanboy stuff. It's just easier literally to just say the PlayStation such and such generation.
I mean, like, what I try to do, and like my brain still hasn't completely settled into this, but like I guess the 8th gen or 9th gen or like that kind of shit. But like my brain doesn't really, because like really when I think about it, I think about when I started heavy gaming, and that would have been the N64 PS1 generation. And so I'm like, that's the first generation to me. Or like even the SNES Sega Genesis, that would be the first generation. And so to me, we're on like the 6th generation or something like that. But
yeah,
like,
that and people don't really keep up with the generation numbers like that. So, you know, to the average person, when you tell them that, they're not going to know what you're talking about.
Not only that, but like the generations are kind of mixed, because like, is the Switch an 8th generation console or a 9th generation console? Because it came out like the Wii U technically is supposed to be the 8th generation console, and then the Switch was supposed to be the console after that. So for them, that's their 9th gen console. So like, it gets a little fuzzy.
Not to mention Nintendo consoles are just older than all the other ones too. So they've had way more.
Yeah, which is kind of why you know when you say the 9th gen, like, because the Nintendo was around like NES, you know, like, you know, so I think they were what, 3rd? I think that's 3rd generation. Yeah, NES 3rd, SNES 4th, N64 5th, GameCube 6th, something like that. Whatever. But like, I guess what I'm saying, like the pro thing, to me, I don't think there should be a pro model this gen, and I think people just kind of assume that there will be because there was one last gen, and they're like, oh well, you know, they got it in last gen, so they just gonna keep doing it as long as they can get away with it. And I'm like, I'm not necessarily like. One of the big reasons why they did a pro model last gen was because the PS4 and the Xbox One X not only had kind of weaker CPUs, which is like a big tech thing that people kept talking about at the time, but it also had like they couldn't do 4K. Now, if in the next 5 years 8K becomes affordable and they're trying to push 8K visuals, then maybe. But I don't think that they're gonna do 8K unless they like put in like DLSS SSS. I don't think they're gonna do it. Like, I don't think they're gonna do 8K unless they can slip in that super sampling type shit. If they can't do that, it's just gonna be too graphically demanding. It's gonna be asking too much of the developers to be like, hey, you know, what if you could run it in 1080p and also 4K and also 8K? Like, hold on, bro. Like,
go ahead and add like 2 or 3 more years of development time.
Exactly. Like, go ahead and add another 3 years.
Won't get new games for another decade.
You know, you can start your game on the PS5 era and you'll be ready for the PS7 era. Like, you know, if they still have PlayStations by then, like, you'll be taking that goddamn long. Like, no, that's don't do that. So I don't necessarily, unless we start pushing 8K televisions because they become suddenly affordable. Like 4K was on the verge of affordable when they started selling the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X. It was on the verge of affordable, and now it is affordable, so it makes sense. But like, I don't think 8K is gonna get there in the next 3 or 4 years. So I'm like, do you need a Pro, or is it just like something that people want because they want consoles to be more like easier to use PCs. So, Terrence, do you think that there'll be pro models this coming gen or this gen?
I don't think so. Like, just I agree 100% with your reasoning. It's like the only reason the pro models existed was because the upgrade from 1080p to 4K and or even just 2K, the 1440p. There's no 6K or like 8K that's just available like that we're using at this point. I mean, I guess people are starting to transition to 4K TVs. Like, I didn't tell you all this, but I actually, along with the PS5, I upgraded my TVs because
Hey.
there's no reason to get a next gen system and still have a 1080p TV. Although my 1080p TV was just fine. Like I still like it, but I just felt like might as well just go ahead and future proof myself for the rest of the decade. But yeah, I have a 4K TV now, and I can't imagine trying to buy an 8K TV because if I were to pretty much I'd be like doubling the price of what I just paid. And one of the 4K TV that I got, it was on sale. It's one of the more popular 4K TVs right now, and I think it was really on sale just because Amazon lowered the price due to like Prime Day. And I'm pretty sure after Prime Day is done, like, and we go into like August and September, they'll go back to like the real price. In fact, it's starting to. I noticed the model that I was following, it was previously like in the 800 somewhere, and then it like kind of climbed down, and now that people have started to catch on to the deal, it started to climb back up, and that was just for like a 48 inch. Like, if we're talking like bigger TVs, like, shoot, you're going to come even more out of pocket. So people aren't buying 8K TVs like that because people don't really have 4K TVs like that. So asking if we're going to get a pro model, I feel like you're trying to like you're trying to play checkers when nobody else owns a checkerboard. It's like, what are you doing? I don't know. That might be a weird analogy, but just
I think what you wanted was you trying to play chess and everybody else is playing checkers, and it's not gonna you're not gonna get ahead. Like, you just look dumb. Like, you trying to get too far ahead of everybody. Like,
yeah, I guess that's probably the better way of putting it.
When you get too far ahead of the curve, you don't look smart. You actually look dumb. Yeah. Like, when it's one thing to be ahead of the curve and everybody can see you ahead of the curve, but when it looked like you're not even on the same track, everybody's like, bro, what are you doing? And I feel like if you try to do 8K a little too soon, everybody be like, bro, for what?
Yeah. And so what I do think is, if we do get another model, I think we'll just get slim models. And the PS5, I mean, it desperately needs like a slimmer model. This thing is
fat
huge.
Ass console.
Yeah, it's a huge ass console.
Big ass router.
It's about as big as like the jokes of what was it, like the Atari 7200 and like a lot of those bigger systems back then that look like friggin' VCRs. That's pretty much what the PS5 is like. And now if they do make a slim model, I could see that happening. Well, first off, they have to have what we have now readily available before they make any more models. So that's the thing. People are trying to think about slims and pros, and it's like, you don't even have the original just readily available yet. There's no point in like upgrading or like making a new console when you hadn't even made the original readily available. So I give it maybe till like, this is me, let's see, I'd say 2025 or 2026, maybe then a slim. Just because even next year, if the console starts getting readily available, it'll then be at the point where it's okay, now we have like our stock of PS5s and Series X's just kind of like out there like that. So that's good. And then maybe they can like focus on, like, I guess like they'll be in the lab kind of like focusing on how can we upgrade it or make it even better. And maybe they'll spend like the latter half of 2023 or 2024 doing that. And then maybe like, I don't know, like holiday 2024 going into 2025, maybe then they'll announce like a slim model. Like this is me totally like just spitballing it. I have no idea what they're going to do, but that's kind of my guess, is that if there is going to be a new model of the next gen consoles, it's going to have to be a slim version. I just don't think a pro model is going to be a thing because there's nothing pro right now that they can do to warrant that kind of upgrade. So yeah, unless just something changes drastically in the next like 2 years, I just don't see a pro model being a thing this generation.
I agree. Like, and then I was at first you said 2025, 2026. I was like, that might be a year off, like a year too late. But then I thought about it, and I'm like, really, the PS5, its sales are supply constrained. Like, they're selling every model they can make, and they're starting to like they're still ahead of the PS4, but not by what they should be. There's clearly more demand than there is supply, and so
Right.
you would want to get to a point where the demand and the supply have kind of evened out before you want to like add in a new model.
Yeah,
And then also, as far as like a pro, like, is this tech problem gonna go away? Because
that's
if it
act.
doesn't,
Yeah, that's another point as well. It's like if they were really going to make a slim or a pro model this quickly, they kind of would have done it already. That's kind of like I feel like the PS5 and the Series X kind of would have looked like that already, because I don't think we've really made that drastic of a leap in technology between 2020 when they came out and now to warrant like a pro or a slim or something like that. Because I feel like it would have just looked like that to begin with.
well, I'm not gonna say that because like you do wind up with tech that's a little older because you have to start making those consoles like the work on that console started in probably 2019, maybe even 2018, and then as they started to drill down into what those new next gen consoles were going to be, that's when they started to be like, okay, well we're going to use this tech instead of this tech. This tech isn't ready. This tech is going to be too expensive, and so they had to drill down pretty fairly early so that they could get it off to like we have our prototype and we're going to take the prototype and get it mass produced, and like all that shit takes time. And so like we
That's fair.
probably are it probably is like a like it came out in 2020 but it's probably using 2019 tech. Even still though, where are we going to be technologically? Like, are you still going to have the same problem as far as getting chips?
Yeah.
Because like chips, the chip shortage is a thing everywhere. That's the reason why video cards still. Wow, that shows you how old I am. That's the reason why GPUs cost what they cost right now. That's the reason why you can't get a hold of a PS5 and an Xbox Series X. And it's the reason why cars, like, we have a
Mm-hmm.
problem, a shortage of cars, and cars are so fucking expensive because they use chips too. And
Mm-hmm.
so, like, and then, like, you have certain stuff going on where you can't get neon for certain reasons that we're not going to talk about. And when you have all these problems going on, it's like, all right, man, like, when is everything gonna align right? Because what I hope they don't do, because I mean, it's still possible they can make a pro model, but what I would hope they don't do is get to that Nintendo shit. I don't know if y'all know what I'm talking about, but Nintendo has this
Oh,
bad
demake
habit.
it?
You say what?
Demake it like the 2DS and like shit like that?
No. The other thing, Nintendo has this bad habit of launching a model a year before they launch a new console or a new like portable. So like the Game Boy Advance SP came out I think a year prior to the to the DS, Nintendo DS. And then like the Nintendo 3DS had the new 3DS for like a year and a half or some shit like that. And then
Oh,
suddenly
kind
the
of like
Switch is coming
how
out.
I guess technically the last version of the Game Boy Advance was like it was like Game Boy Advance Pocket or Mini or something like I forgot what it was called. It was a really small version that was kind of
Oh no,
weird.
I mean like the Game Boy Pocket. That stuck around for a little while.
Not
It,
not
it, it
not
was
not the Pocket, not like the Game Boy Pocket, but it was called. I had to look it up. But go on with your point. But yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I mean, what I'm just hoping is that Nintendo doesn't get to. I mean, like Microsoft and Sony, I don't want them to get to a point where it's like, yeah, a year before the next console comes out, we're gonna go ahead and have the upgraded Pro model of like that's too late. It's never too late for a slim model to me because slim models kind of appeal to late adopters. Like they come along kind of late. They don't really care when they get the tech. They just want it cheap at a reasonable price, and they just go pick it up. Like that's fine. And so like a slim model, you could come out with a slim model in late 2025, early 2026, and then the next console comes out in 2027. They don't care because they weren't that interested in getting a new console off rip anyway. But like a pro model, that's for like people that are like, oh yeah, I want the best tech at like they gonna be pissed if they pick up the pro model in 2025, late 2025, and that the next console comes out late 2027. It's like, man, I had this console and I had the best tech for like a year, and now all of a sudden I got trash. Like what? And so like I would be kind of heated, and I hopefully Nintendo, I mean hopefully Microsoft and Sony don't resort to no nonsense like that.
Let
Rakeem,
me bring this up real quick. Like, when did the PS4 Pro? I mean, I guess I can look that up. But when did the PS4 Pro come
2016.
out? Okay, so it was
2016.
just how many years? 4,
Four.
3? Okay,
4.
okay.
And
okay.
the Xbox One X came out in 2017, I believe.
Okay,
So that was like 3 years. So they literally came out in the middle of the generation.
okay.
So it's not that bad. Like if they were to drop a PS4, a PS5 Pro, and an Xbox Series C, I don't fucking know. Like their naming, their nomenclature is so weird now. If they were to drop something in like 2024, I'd be like, yeah, I guess, but I wouldn't buy it unless I just hadn't bought a console yet. Rakeem, how do you feel? Do you feel like they would do a Pro?
I guess it depends on how long this console cycle is going to be. I guess in my mind, like depending on, like you said, the advancement of technology, if they feel like advancing the console fully to the next generation is a ways off, they might have a concession where like, okay, we'll get to a point where we can upgrade it a little bit and like there's a little bit of advances. Let's try a Pro for now. Maybe like I wouldn't expect to see anything like that till like 2025, maybe 2026, maybe.
So
If that.
in my it typically runs every 7 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
You had 2006, 2013, you had 2013, 2020. So smart money is 2020 to 2027. So do you feel like they would
I
still
see
do
what
a
you're saying.
Pro?
If they did, maybe not 2026. If they did it in like 2025, 2024, maybe. But like you guys said, like there really is no reason to do one. I could see them doing a slim. That makes sense. Um, maybe they'll have I don't know, maybe they'll have some kind of VR Pro. I don't know. Some kind of enhancements to VR happen. They could do a VR Pro some kind of way. There might be some kind of other thing that pops up in gaming by then. We don't know. Some kind of weird interface thing. There's always something like that every few years. You never know. They probably aren't going to do it. They might mess around and get back to the handheld market. It could happen. Very
You
unlikely.
gotta no, I think you have a point. Like, there's clearly a market for a good handheld, but I think
Yeah.
the only way to get there now is what the Switch has done. And
Right.
so, like,
Yeah.
basically, you need to be able to play your games, play the same games on console that you can play on handheld. I think that's the only way to get there.
Yeah. I know the Steam Deck seems to be doing pretty well.
Steam, I mean, like, you can't find one.
Oh.
So if you can't buy one, then it's doing pretty well in my
Okay.
opinion. Like,
Yeah.
of course, there's you would like to be able to buy them and it be
Yeah.
freely available, but like it's sold out is always good.
Yeah. Especially now since like streaming is becoming a little more popular. Like I saw the other day, I was looking at videos on Dark Tide. I'm gonna talk about the Warhammer 40K game, Dark Tide. And they said, yeah, of course, it's going to launch on Xbox because they always launch on Xbox and PC first before they go to PlayStation. But it got announced that they're going to be on the NVIDIA GeoForce system, which is a complete streaming service that you can stream through your TV. I could see Sony doing maybe like a streaming thing through their, like if they could find a way to get a streaming handheld going, I could see that being a contender they could make. But that's just a pipe dream.
At some point, they need to figure out what the fuck they're gonna do with this Gaikai, because they had it, and I mean like PS Now, but like, does anybody really give a shit about PS Now?
Well, you're kind of
you know what?
forced not to now because it doesn't. Well, I mean, it got rolled into PS Plus, so I mean, yeah.
Yes, I will say this. I did go ahead and try the premium for the not the highest end, not the extra. That stuff was way too expensive. But I did try the premium, and I'm trying that now. I'm starting to try the streaming service through there. I haven't delved too much into it, but I was interested to see how the system worked. Right now, it's okay. I just wish they had more of an older game backlog. That needs to be upgraded.
I mean, they doing pretty. What's up, Terrence?
Oh, well, one thing that I was going to say in regards to if there's a PS4, PS5 Pro is, do you all think that would kind of step on the toes of the PS6 a bit too much? Because like if you go into like 8K for the PS5, I don't know what I mean. Maybe by then they'll have some new advancement in terms of like whatever is beyond 8K. So maybe that's just me kind of like thinking too much about it.
No, it's not. I mean, like, so here's the thing. You were kind of like, the thing about like coming out, like you have to be careful how late you come out with this system, because there was obviously some pretty big changes between, the PS4 Pro when it dropped in 2016, which was really just some minor adjustments. and like a larger hard drive, and just like making it a little stronger, strong enough to handle 4K, strong enough to run things in a higher resolution frame rate. Uh, but then like there's 4 years, or really three, because 2019 is probably when they nailed down the tech that they wanted. But like there's 3 to 4 years of time in between for tech to advance. If you're not careful, if you launch the PS4, the PS5, and the Xbox Series Pro models too soon, then yeah, you would run into like all right, well, like in 18 months we gotta come out with a brand new console, and what the fuck is that gonna be? Like, what's that gonna look like? So yeah, I agree. Like it would step on the toes if they come out with it in 2026. What's up, Keem?
Yeah, and I was on another point. I had thought about this earlier. Do y'all remember when Oh my God, I'm getting the nomenclature off too. Y'all remember when Xbox put their Pro version out of the last gen Xbox, and they made a really really big deal about that chip. Like they had the commercials like this is the strongest console available. I think for Xbox, like they're pushing on tech too, because I mean they have that's kind of the whole thing.
Yeah.
If they can find some kind of way to find a big chip advancement that causes some kind of ridiculous advancement in gaming, they're
No
gonna jump
loading
on that pro
times.
early. Yeah,
I mean,
like
shit, that's what's supposed to be there now, and Sony was the one that pushed that button. Sony, they got the extra fast solid state drive. Like it's a solid state drive beyond solid state drives and all that shit. That's why it's got so much less space. Like
mhm.
I think the Xbox Series has like a terabyte, and it's got like 600
825.
and yeah, but like I think it formats
Well,
down to
yeah.
like 667 gigs or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah,
Like
they had to avoid 666.
yeah, obviously,
Well, there
yeah,
you go.
but like when the fuck, like I think Sony was supposed to have the no loading time. We can move as fast as we want. We can load up this area as fast as possible. So I don't know what they would do to come out with like the most powerful system. But yeah, I do remember that because like they waited an extra year. Like Sony, the PS4 Pro came out in I think late 2016, November 2016, and then like Xbox was like, "Nah, we gonna wait a whole year and give you a bigger jump," because the PS4 Pro is better than the PS4, but not by that much. The
Yeah.
Xbox One X is a huge leap because the Xbox One was technologically behind the PS4. Like it had a worse RAM, it had worse CPU. Yeah, a lot of things that just wasn't quite equal, and that's why launch games always all looked worse. Speaking of games, for y'all, what's the big? Well, actually, let's save that one. Let's table that one for a second. Should we be out of cross gen already? That's
Mm.
the next question. So Rakeem, like, how do you feel about the fact that we're still in cross gen, and do you think this year needs to be the last year cross gen, or can we do cross gen like another year?
I'm mad at the cross gen. You know why? Because A, it was hard as a mud to get this console. B, we were in a pandemic for a little bit where things were kind of locked down and stuff was kind of iffy, and that caused supply issues. I think cross gen staying around an extra year actually kind of helped a little bit, kind of kept us engaged in gaming, so there wasn't a big drought between the new titles that got pushed back. I didn't really have a problem with that. However, I do agree. I think maybe next year, now that everything seems to slowly be like, hey, it's starting to come slow. I mean, we still have the chip shortage, of course, but
Yeah.
slowly we're definitely getting more supply models out. I think that's obvious. Maybe by next year, I think we can start kind of moving away from the cross gen, especially now that we have a lot more big titles are coming out next year anyway, like exclusives. That might be the beginning of the end. I think they're kind of starting to phase those out slowly. I think the cross gen in the beginning, because of the issues we were having, and it staying like an extra year farther than it normally would, I think that actually was a good thing. I think it allowed people who couldn't adapt to the new consoles to not feel so left out. And so when they moved into the PS5, they had the games they were already playing, so it was easy for them to adjust to it. That definitely worked for me because I played everything I played besides, Deathloop, excuse me, I just got was cross gen. Elden Ring's cross gen because it has backwards compatibility anyway. But all these games are cross gen. Ghost of Tsushima has like the upgrades. Spider Man has the upgrades. I think it's a good thing. I don't have a problem with it. But maybe by next year, I think it's time to kind of table those out.
So you mean like the end of next year, or like the middle of next year? Like,
Probably like the middle of next year.
okay, so like come fall 2023, it's like that. It's about time to get cross gen up on out of
Yeah.
here. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Terrence, how do you feel about cross gen? Like, do you feel like is that like tying us down? Because isn't Street Fighter 6 supposed to be cross-gen?
Yeah, Street Fighter 6 is cross gen, and I'll admit I kind of thought that we would be at the point now where we wouldn't have cross gen, just because I, I feel like we haven't fully taken advantage of the console's power yet, because we're still having to develop games for the prior gen. Well, we're still having to make next gen games run on prior gen hardware. It's like we haven't seen the full power of next gen, even with the games that are next gen exclusive, like Returnal or Deathloop. I feel like they haven't quite squeezed all of the power out just yet. And I mean, of course, usually like all the usually it's like the last 2 years of a system's lifespan where you see like the full power of it. I mean, like with PS2, we got Final Fantasy 12 and God of War 2 that were games that made everything that came out in the PS2 in like the early days look like nothing. Well, not like nothing, but just it was way better. I'll put it that way graphically. But I don't have a problem with cross gen the same way that Rakeem said, just because it's been a great way to kind of tide us over while supply issues get sorted out. But I do think that fall 2023 would be ideal, but part of me wants to say that I think 2024 is going to be the year where we really start to see the games go full next gen. Just because, I mean, stuff is still being developed right now, and I mean, the cross gen train hasn't stopped, so I just don't see a reason why the games that come out next year wouldn't still be cross gen. So, but I'll say this, like if fall 2023 happens and the games going forward from then on are current gen, I'm not mad at it. I mean, not just because I have a next gen system, just because it's time. It's kind of you have to come to a certain point where you have to realize it's like, look, we have to let the old technology go and stick to just the new stuff, just because it's holding us back. We can't still be in cross gen in 2024, because at that point you're 4 years into the console's life cycle. Something has to change. So yeah, that's my take on it. What you got, Rakeem?
Yeah.
I was great point, Terrence. I was gonna put a great example of that is actually Elden Ring, and think about the Blue Point Demon Souls remake. So Elden Ring is a cross-gen game. You can kind of tell graphically it's kind of being held back. And I mean, not Elder Scrolls, but like that studio's not known for really graphically intensive games anyway. And then you see the Blue Point version of what a Demon Souls game can look like, and it looks ridiculously good.
Yeah.
So like you can kind of visually see where we should be at, but we're still being held back by like cross gen. Like it's that comparable.
It's kind of like when Metal Gear Solid 4 came out on PS3. It was like, oh, this is at that time next gen. It's like, oh, this is a next gen game. So I think we haven't quite gotten that kind of game with this generation, but we're slowly getting there. Well, I'm curious to see how God of War 2 looks. I think God of War Ragnarok, that despite it being cross gen, I think that game is going to look phenomenal on PS5. So yeah.
I guess like I do think cross gen is probably fine like right now, like because here's the thing, yet again, like if you go back and you look at where things were last gen relative to this gen, 2014 was full of cross gen games.
Yeah.
Like jam packed with it. So 2021 being full of cross gen games, it was fine. Like it really wasn't that big of a deal. And like 2015 was really only when you finally started to see them be like, okay, we're kind of done with cross gen. It's time for you to move on. You've had your console. If you bought it at launch, you've had it since 2006. It's 2015 now. It's time to move on. And 2022 wasn't that, but it kind of is, right? Like Starfield was supposed to launch this gen. I think that's current gen only. Not Batman. Gotham Knights, they dropped their last gen version. They were like, nah, bro, it's just gonna be next gen or current gen only. And you're seeing like Final Fantasy. I think Final Fantasy 16 at first was supposed to have a PS4 version, but it's not going to now. So like that's a thing to think about. And like so, I'm not bothered by it because, like y'all said, we kind of needed cross-gen at the start of this gen because you couldn't get a hold of anything. Like you couldn't find a PS5, you couldn't find an Xbox Series X, and so what was I supposed to do? Like not buy like that would have screwed a lot of games that came out in the last year and a half. And so even like this, like the early parts of this year, like what were they supposed to do? Like they were still hard to come by, and it would have like if Elden Ring was next gen only, no way it sells 12 million copies. Like forget that. And it's the same with other consoles. Like okay, good luck. Like you're not gonna get what you should get not consoles but games. Same thing with other games. Like you're not gonna sell the millions of copies that you need to sell to justify all this time and all this effort that you put into making these games. So I don't think cross gen is all that bad. I do think that starting really at the start of next year, like Keem said, the middle. Terrence, I think he said near the fall. I want from the start of next year. I don't want to see too many cross gen games. Like it's time to move on. It's time, and for us, because a lot of us, I think everybody here plays a lot of Japanese games. So for us, good luck. It's gonna be a little bit of a problem.
Yeah,
But
that's
for
kind of what
everybody
I
else,
think. Yeah.
like when the next Yakuza game comes out, you better believe that's gonna be cross gen. When the next
Yes.
Trails game comes out, I know that's gonna be cross gen.
Lord.
And I'm pretty sure East 10, when you get East 10 Keem, I'm pretty sure that's gonna be cross gen.
Square is the only ones that are gonna be on the next gen train like that.
Really,
Let's be
yeah.
honest. Yeah.
Have a budget.
And even Square, like their AA games, those are still probably gonna be cross gen because they need to sell every copy they can. And so like I understand you wanted to make sure everybody can have something, but like it's time, it's past time to move on. So I guess the last question I'd ask, what's the game for you that's current gen, like that's gonna be big current gen? Like what's the big current gen game for you? And I guess for me, that game right now is I want to say Starfield, like the next, like the soonest, the game that's coming out. I feel like the soonest. Well, no. I guess Gotham Knights, but I just as excited as I am for Gotham Knights, and this might sound
Reputation.
crazy to people, I think Gotham Knights is. I'm gonna have more fun with Gotham Knights if it's not just like a failure, like if it's above passable, if it's like a 7.5 to an 8, I'm gonna have more fun with that than I am with Starfield most likely. But to me, like I don't think it's gonna be capitalized on the next gen stuff as much because like you only dropped the last gen consoles recently. Like that's not soon enough. It wasn't designed with the next gen in mind or current gen in mind, and so I don't think it's gonna capitalize on all the tech of current gen. So like I'm kind of like sure y'all drop current gen and that's probably that y'all drop last gen and that's probably for the best, but like that ain't enough, bro. So like to me the next game that I'm like okay, this is going to be the big game is going to be Starfield. And I think Starfield is going to be like a big deal. You would hope, right? I think Starfield is going to really capitalize and be that next gen thing that we're looking for, that next gen experience that I'm looking for, that capitalizes on the power of the PS5, on the power of the Xbox Series X, well, PS5, on the power of the Xbox Series X. It ain't gonna launch on PS5. It's gonna be an exclusive, which is
Still
still
getting
not a problem.
Diablo though.
Are y'all?
Yes, they announced
Oh,
that. We still getting Diablo. I was mad because I wanted Diablo 4. They said we got y'all PlayStation. Y'all can
okay,
have Diablo.
okay, that's what's up.
Appreciate y'all.
I mean, like I'm not as concerned. Like, I know we've been talking. It's been kind of PS heavy, but the reality is, I'm a PC gamer right now until I get a PS5. So when I look at things, I'll be like, okay, well, is it gonna come to PC, and what's it gonna look like on PC? So that's like really where I'm at, where my head is at for right now.
Yeah.
And so I think the next big game that's gonna take advantage of next gen for me is gonna be uh, Starfield, hopefully, right? Rakeem, where's your head at? Like, what's the big next gen game that you're like, I gotta have this?
God of War Ragnarok. Especially now we have a release date. No doubt about it. I've been waiting. As soon as I beat the last game and the way they ended it, I could not wait for a sequel. FF16, I'm a little more excited for because I'm close to that franchise. But God of War Ragnarok A has a release date this year, so I can see the light in the tunnel. B, I know Sony is going to capitalize on like features for PS5 for this game because it's pretty much their biggest franchise, at least to me. Yes, their biggest franchise. So they're going to capitalize on the PS5. Even though it has cross gen, there's probably going to be specific things with PS5 it can do. I talked to one of my friends a few weeks ago about the previous God of War and some of the PS5 features it has and like things you can do with the visuals, and it even looks really good on 4K screen. So like they did a good job with those visuals. So Man, it's gonna be I cannot wait just for the combat. And people, I think a lot of people who have not played the most recent God of War compared to the old games, like those were very much, power fantasies. This new God of War is in the direction of this is a real adventure. This is like Zelda-esque, open world, lots of stuff to do, lots of different areas to go. Like in the last game, you got to go to all the different realms, see all the different realms, get all the different, fight the gods and stuff like that. He's about to go one-on-one with Thor. I'm hyped. I'm ready. God of War Ragnarok, that's the one for me this year. And I think it's going to look great on PS5.
So I think your answer is going to coincide with Terrence's answer. Am I correct?
I think I was gonna say I was gonna bring up God of War, but I do think Final Fantasy 16 that's gonna be the real big next gen game. Just because Square doesn't hold back when it comes to the graphics, especially when it comes to like mainline Final Fantasy games. So I'm just looking forward to seeing how polished 16 looks. So I think that that's gonna be the test for next gen in terms of stuff that's been announced so far. Now, in terms of stuff that hasn't been announced, whenever Naughty Dog does another project that's not Last of Us remake, I think that's gonna be a real next gen game. Just because for every not every generation, but since the PS3, when the PS3 came out, when they had Uncharted 2, that was not. I don't want to say groundbreaking. That might be hyping it up a little bit too much, but that was a big game for PS3 at the time. And then when Uncharted 4 came out for PS4, that was a big game. So whatever Naughty Dog is working on after this Last of Us 1 remake that I still don't think should have been a thing, I think that game is going to be something else. So yeah. For now, my answer is Final Fantasy 16, but I'm very curious to see what first party Sony does in the future, just because those titles are usually very well polished. And I'm very curious to see how they look when they're no longer bound to like cross-gen stuff.
Fight back, Microsoft. My God, like everybody said something about Sony. I didn't. But I mean, like, just
you didn't technically.
Yeah, that's why I didn't. But like, still, like, fight. But like, the perception will change as you like make it change. So I need Microsoft to fight back. I need Xbox to like come out with the heat. I mean, like, Halo
I can't really
Infinite,
think of a big title on Xbox that has been shown off yet. I know there's stuff in the pipeline, but nothing that's been shown off yet that it really stands out as my mind as being like fully next gen outside of like Starfield, of course.
Well, there wouldn't be anything because they haven't shown any gameplay of anything.
Well, yeah, there you go, exactly.
They've announced Avowed, they've announced Fable, they've announced what the fuck am I the Outer Worlds 2. They've announced there's this Perfect Dark and Contraband. Those are the games I was thinking of. They've announced all of those games, but like you haven't seen any gameplay of them. So I mean, like, what hype can there be? Like, you can only hype that up if you're like a fanboy. If you're not a fanboy or a fangirl, it's hard for you to be like, yeah, Xbox gonna have, like, you running off nothing but blind hope. You got no evidence. And so like hopefully Xbox can kind of get it together with Redfall and then with Starfield. Hopefully they can kind of get it together and be like, all right, look, we got something going, and then maybe at the next Xbox Game Showcase we see something crazy. But all right, that's gonna wrap it up for this week's episode. If you enjoyed it, I need you to do a couple of things. I need you to do us a favor, hit that subscription button on YouTube. I need you to follow us on Twitter and TikTok, and I need you to tell your friends about us. And finally, I need you to do me a personal favor and have an excellent week. Peace.